Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. In this tutorial, we're going to do an overview of effects palettes and snapshots. Effects palettes is a very powerful way to add dynamics and automations to your light shows. Effects palettes allows you to take snapshots of the fixtures on your stage and then recall those at later times based on events in the music, when you hit the trigger effect buttons, or when you press play on a cue. Here's a few examples of what you can do with effects palettes. Number one, you could position your movers to specific places on the stage and recall those positions. You can automate effects fixtures like strobes when the energy of the music is really high. Or you could turn off effects fixtures like lasers and gobos and things like that when the energy of the music is low or when the beat drops out. Those are just a few examples. Effects palettes allows you to do a ton of different things, and I hope this tutorial gives you an overview of all of that. Let's get into it. Okay, so here I've got my setup. On this side, I've got my Maestro app with a couple tabs open, running different parts of the app. And then down here, I have a virtual stage set up using the Capture software where I can demonstrate the lights. So in terms of the flow of this video, I'll explain the fixtures and the fixture groups that I have on the stage. And then we'll jump over to the control page where I'll talk about how control works and how to build snapshots. And then we'll go over to the show page where I'll show you how to build an effects palette using those snapshots and how to recall them. Awesome. So go into our stage. I'll jump over to my patcher page, which is under stage. And you can see that on this movers fixture group, I have 8 moving headlights, and those are the lights on the back truss. I can solo them here and jump through each light. I then have these 3 wash lights that are on a wash group that I created. And those lights are pointing at the performers on the stage. So I can solo that one, and that one. I also have some strobing fixtures, which are not on right now. Those are located up here on the truss on the left and right. I have 2 side-mounted movers, Mac 550s. There's one over here and one over here. And then I have 2 Gobo effects fixtures, which you can't see at the moment. Those are located down here, pointing at the back curtain. Okay, that's our stage. Let's jump over to the control page. Okay, so the control page is where you can change parameters of the fixtures on your stage and see the changes in real time. And it's where you can also create snapshots, which we're going to talk about. Over here, we have a list of all of your fixtures on the stage. And then for each fixture, you'll see all of the channels that you can modify. You can solo the fixture here. And then over here is where you create your snapshots. So the default setup for the control page, or the default snapshot, is called Fixture Default. Any snapshots that you make are derived from Fixture Default and built on top of Fixture Default. So let's go ahead and learn how to build your first snapshot. So let's say I want to make a snapshot where all the movers on the back truss turn off. Let's do that. So I'll click here, I'll go add snapshot. I'll call it truss movers off. Okay, now I'm going to press this preview button. When that button is flashing, any changes I make to that snapshot will reflect onto the stage. I'm going to pick my first mover here, and I'm simply just going to turn the shutter off on that mover. So that's going to be this mover over here. I'll solo it. So I'll stroll down to the shutter channel and I'll turn it off. So that fixture has now turned off. And now I'm going to link the other fixtures on that truss to that first fixture, so I can control them all at once. So I'll click Link Other Fixture Channels, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to pick the Intimidator beam number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you'll see they're all turning off over here, and 8. See, now I've linked them. So I can turn them all on and off at the same time. It's really handy, hey? I can also undo that change I just made by clicking this Reset Snapshot to Default. I won't do that at the moment. Okay, so that's our first snapshot. It just turns the movers on the back truss off, and then I can show you how to recall that snapshot later during our show. Okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and delete that snapshot because I've already created it. And it returns to the fixture default. So let's talk about a bunch of snapshots that I already created, and I'm going to talk you through some of them. So I have a big list here. So first of all is sparse movers 1. If I click that and I hit preview, it turns off all the movers except 2 in the middle. And then sparse movers 2, it turns off all the movers except the ones on the side. These are just effects I thought would be cool to create a bit more of a sparse effect in the lights. I then created something called Drummer Spotlight, which moves all the lights to the drummer and also turns off the front washes on the other performers. I can recall this snapshot when there's a drum solo. Moving on, I've got a snapshot called Movers Crowd. And this just faces the movers towards the crowd and kind of builds a ceiling over the crowd. It's a neat effect. And if we actually look at that snapshot here, you'll notice that the channels that are blue are the channels that have been changed from the fixture default. I should have mentioned that before. And here we've got the pan and the tilt channels have been changed and then linked across the other fixtures on that back truss. So I'm working with Intimidator Beam 1 here, and I've linked it. I've linked the pan and tilts. I've also set the widths to 0, so those lights don't move. They just point straight. I can actually hit overridden here on any fixture, and it will only show me the channels that are changed from the fixture default. Or if I hit all, then it will give me access to all the channels. Okay, moving on. I've got another snapshot called Movers Up and Down. Simply just points the movers up and down. These ones up, these down. I've got a strobe snapshot, which turns on those strobes. I've got a Gobo effect snapshot, where I turn the front lights off down here, and I turn the Gobo effects on. Let's dive into that snapshot and have a look at how I did it. So I'm going to search for my Gobo fixture. I've got 2 of them. You'll notice that there's this effects badge. That effects badge indicates that that fixture is being used in a snapshot. If the badge is colored in, it means it's being used in the current snapshot. If it's not colored in and it says effects, it means that it's being used, but not specifically in the snapshot you're in. So I can scroll through here and, for instance, look at this Mac 550 and see it says effects. It's not colored in. That means it has a snapshot attached to it, but it's not the current one. It's not fronts, off, plus backwall gobos. However, these snapshots are being, these fixtures are all being used in the current snapshot. So let's go back to the Gobo flower. So how did I do this? So there's a number of changes here. I'll hit overridden so I can just see the changes. First of all, I have a master dimmer channel that is connected to the dimmer attribute, which is typically controlled by Maestro. But in this case, I've overridden that channel with a static value by clicking this under extended controls. And I've set it to full. So that's just going to make the dimmer go full. I've also linked this Gobo flower fixture to the other Gobo flower fixture's master dimmer channel. The shutter or strobe channel, I've set to 37 and linked it. That just turns it on. And then there's a color wheel channel here that defines all the colors that this Gobo fixture can use. I've also overridden this one and just set it to 0 because white is the first color in the color channel. I've also linked it. And then here is the Gobo channel. I've turned off all the Gobos except for number 4 in this case. I could take number 4 off and go to number 9, for instance, but I like number 4 for this effect. And again, I've also linked it down here. So that's backwall gobos number 1, and I've also made backwall gobos number 2. Same idea, just change the gobo. And this is a snapshot that I can recall later on with my effects palette. I've also got movers off, which is what we made before. So that turns off all the movers on the back truss. And then I've got some side mover positions. So I've got side mover position 1. As you'll see here, these movers are pointing up here. On position 2, they're pointing down. Position 3, they're pointing down even more. So I made 3 different positions for those movers, which again, I'll show you how I'm using them in effects palettes. Okay, that concludes all the snapshots on the stage. I hope that gives you a good idea of how those work. And next up, we're going to jump over to the show page and create an effects palette to use these snapshots. Clicking show. All right. So I created a queue called effects tutorial. And on that queue, I have my 4 fixture groups with various different patterns. So the movers on the back truss are using energetic with this color palette. The washes in the front pointing at the performers are using energetic as well with this color palette. There's the strobes. There's also the side movers. The side movers are using the chill pattern. So they're mellowed out a little bit using the neon retro color palette. So pretty straightforward. I've left my parameters as defaults on all of those patterns. So let's go ahead and create an effects palette into which we're going to then embed our snapshots and recall them based on certain events. So I'm going to add an effects palette, call it main show. I can fill out a description. So this is my tutorial effects palette. I can also give it a category. All right, so let's include our first snapshot by clicking here. And I'm going to pick movers off. So if I hit this preview button, I can preview the snapshot. That's going to turn the movers off. Movers off. And I want those movers to turn off when the beat drops out. So if I pick no kick drum, then when the kick drum drops out, those movers are going to turn off. For now, I'm going to leave the activity range full, and I'll talk about what that means in a bit. So we'll save that. Okay, so now let's play some music. And when the music starts playing, and if there's no kick drum, those movers are going to turn off. And when the kick drum drops in, those movers are going to turn on. So they're off right now, and then they're going to turn on. There we go. Awesome. So that snapshot works. Okay, so let's continue editing. All right, so we're going to include another snapshot. This is going to be my silent state. So I'm going to pick my silent category, and I'm going to pick movers up and down. Movers up and down. So if I save that, then my movers should move up and down. So my back truss movers moved down as expected, but my side movers didn't move up as I told them in the snapshot. Why is that? That is because we've only attached the effects palette to the movers fixture group. The side movers are actually on a different fixture group, so I have to go ahead and apply the effects palette to those as well. So if I go over to side movers, pick my effects palette, you see those movers have now moved up. This is a tricky point that can definitely make you stumble a little bit, and it can be confusing, but you do have to apply the effects palette to each fixture group for it to work on those lights. So let's go ahead and add the effects palette to each fixture group. There we go. Now we're ready to rock. Let's edit the effects palette and continue on. So I've created a category with no kick drum to turn the movers off. I've created a silence category when there's no sound going into the stage. And then let's create a strobe effect. So I'm going to pick my strobe, preview it. And then I want this strobe to happen at moments of high energy in the music. So I'm going to pick when there's a kick drum, or essentially when there's a beat. I'm going to move the activity range up quite high and tell it, hey, when you're in this activity range, or, excitement level of the music, and the kick drum is playing, then go ahead and trigger that snapshot, i.e., turn on the strobes and turn off the movers. So we'll save that. So it gets it. I'm actually going to edit it again. And what you can see is while the music is playing, you're going to see this meter moving up and down in this bar, indicating the activity level. So let's go ahead and play some music. And when the activity gets up here, when the beat is playing, the strobes will go off. Here we go now, the activity's here. Oh. So. All right. So you saw there how the music kicked up, and as it was getting more intense, it crossed into this region of activity level and turned those strobes on. You may have to mess around with your activity range here to kind of pick your sweet spot based on the type of music you're playing. So pretty cool, hey? All right, let's continue on. So now I'm going to create some moments for lower energy sections of the music. So if I pick sparse movers 1, which looks like that, and then sparse movers 2, sparse movers 1, I'm going to add it to kick drum, but I'm going to say when the energy is in this region below 50%, and I'm also going to do another one, sparse movers 2, and also make it the same. So now I've got 2 snapshots in the exact same category, kick drum in the exact same range. So the music is going to decide which one to play based on changes in the music and give it some variety. So when the energy is lower and there's a beat playing, it will make the movers more sparse in the background. Okay, moving on, let's add some effects. So I'm going to pick my Backwell Gobos 1. I'm going to add it to the effect category. So this will then trigger when I press the effect button on the show page. So turn that onto effect, pick the next one, Backwell Gobos 2, also turn that onto effect. And then let's say I actually don't want that to trigger unless the energy is a little higher. So let's turn the energy up above 50%. So what this is doing is when the activity level is up above 50%, and I press the effect button, then I'm going to get those gobo effects on the back wall, and it's going to pick between these two, and it's going to alternate between them. So I'll save that. All right, so now I'm going to play some music and trigger that effect button. And when the music is at a high enough energy level, the effects will show up on the back curtain. There we go. So you get the idea. A little intense. Okay, let's continue on editing our effects palette. So let's recap so far. So we have movers turning off when there's no kick drum. We have the movers pointing up and down during silence, as they are right now. We have a strobe automation set up that's strobing those strobe fixtures when the kick drum is playing at higher activity levels. We also have made the mover fixtures bit sparse when the activity levels drop when there's a beat. And I've added my effects that are based on specific bands of activity level as well. Okay, let's see what else we can add. Yeah, we can also add my side mover positions into here. So I've got a few different positions. As you can see, side mover positions 1. We'll make this just on kick drum. We'll make it on kick drum starting at 50. And we'll do side movers position 2. Also starting at 50. And side movers position 3. Starting at 50. The reason I'm starting it at 50 is because we've already set up some snapshots to trigger below 50 with the sparse movers. So I'm going to set these side mover positions to move on kick drum from 50 to 100. So what that's going to do, it's going to just sort of lock those movers in, and they're going to jump between those positions based on changes in the music when the kick drum is playing. Let's see how that looks. Just keep an eye on these movers here. There you go. Now they're down. Now they're up. Now they're moving up there. Now they've come back down. So you get the idea. There's a lot going on there, but it's all correlated with the music and the activity level of the music. Okay, so we decked out our effects tutorial queue with this effects palette. We added lots of dynamic, lots of snapshots at different energy levels. I hope that gives you an overview of how powerful effects palettes is and all the things you can do with it. Super exciting. The last thing I'm going to do is create another effects palette and attach it to a queue for when there's a drum solo. So let's add an effects palette. We'll call it drum solo. We're going to add the drum solo spotlight snapshot, keep it on the default category. We'll save it, we'll load it, and then we'll also load it on this fixture group. And I'm going to go ahead and just save that as a queue and call it drum solo. So now when I trigger, let's move it up. When I trigger that cue, the lights are going to move to the drummer for a drum solo. You could have that cue connected to a MIDI controller or open sound control interface. You could trigger it through the app. So for when there's a drum solo, you can hit that cue and the lights will go to that drummer. Okay, that concludes our effects palette overview tutorial. I hope that made sense. I know there's a lot there. Please reach out to us for help. Yeah, we're really excited about effects palettes. It's a super powerful feature and it can take a while to understand, but once you understand it, it really opens up all the possibilities for adding dynamics to your lighting beyond what's possible already. Okay, get in touch if you need help and we'll talk soon.